We're really fortunate today to be here getting a lesson that they don't teach you at Harvard Business School. I have Hamid, Rashid, the CEO and founder of Finterra, who's going to give us a lesson 101 in what is the blockchain, what it really all is about. Hamid, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ali.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here. Hello, everyone. My name is Hamid Rashid. I'm the CEO and founder of Finterra Foundation. Finterra is a company registered in Singapore and has its development center in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Our IPs and patents are being registered in Hong Kong, and our foundation is based out of Geneva, Switzerland. Finterra has been around for the last 5 or 6 months, and we have grown since then in developing a product which is the Finterra blockchain product. And what I'm going to demonstrate today to you is one of the private chains that we are building on top of the Finterra blockchain. Now, the private chain is known as the endowment or WAQF chain. The word endowment is a word not so commonly understood, but what it means is when a piece of asset, especially a land asset or a property asset, when that is given into charity to a foundation, it becomes an endowment. So in the English law, the British English law, endowment law is a common law to the Sharia law in the Islamic world. Now, endowment in Arabic is also known as WAQF, W-A-Q-F, WAQF. In most of the Islamic countries, whether it is in the GCC in the Middle East or in, say, India or Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, WAQF is managed by a board, the WAQF board, and most of the time this WAQF board would be under the Ministry of Minority Rights. In Malaysia or in India, it's common. In the Middle East, in GCC countries, WAQF is managed by what is known as the Ministry of WAQF. And they manage these land assets which have been given into endowment. Now, let me give you a bit of history on endowment first before I show you the Finterra, the private chain model. The history of endowment dates back almost 1400 years. And endowment, the concept actually started way back even in the Byzantine period, where pieces of assets were given out to charity, and those assets were used for the betterment of the society and the community. Now, during the Islamic Empire, a lot of assets were given because the concept of charity grew as a sharing and kind of a caring thing. Now, in the Ottoman Empire, the 800 years of Ottoman Empire, WAQF was taken as a ministry, as a federal ministry, and it was always taken and run as a profit center rather than a cost center. So the land assets that were given, or the property assets that were given out in WAQF during the Ottoman Empire, were always used to generate revenue. So there would be things like stables for the horses, an overnight stay for travelers. There would be hospitals or clinics, or there would be the schools, the Islamic schools, and they were always run on a profit, and the profit proceeds were used for the betterment of the society and also to give out in charity. And that was a very well-established institution within the Ottoman Empire. Now, at the point of First World War in 1914, when the Allies actually broke up the Ottoman Empire into the different countries from Tunisia, Morocco, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, India, Singapore, and Indonesia, what the British did was that these endowed assets were chopped up and given out to those federal governments of those countries, those new independent countries. And rather than as a WAQF, they were handed out to them as endowment pieces of land, and they were put under a board, basically a foundation. Yeah. So in India, they were under the federal ministry or federal WAQF board within the Ministry of Minority Rights. In Malaysia also there is the WAQF board under federal as well as state level. In Indonesia is similar, and Singapore is similar. In the Middle East, in GCC countries, what happened? WAQF was managed by the WAQF. So WAQF was set as a foundation within the government. It had some religious, council influence in it, and it was managed, or those land assets were managed within the WAQF. In Western countries, say like UK, Australia, United States, and South Africa, WAQF was always given out to the mosque as a foundation. So there are a lot of WAQF or endowment assets in those countries, but most of them are registered within the mosque or within, say, the church foundation. So in total today, based on multiple surveys that have been done either by OIC, Organization of Islamic Countries, or WIEF, World Islamic Economic Forum, there are trillions of dollars worth of WAQF assets globally today. Now, the key problem behind the WAQF since 1914 has been how does these assets, land assets in endowment or WAQF assets, attract capital for the development. Now, because of the law underlying to manage WAQF and endowment, there are certain limitations, right? Those limitations are that these assets cannot be liquidated. They cannot be sold off, okay? They cannot be transferred from the board to other persons, or they cannot be put up as collateral to raise capital or to take loan against it. So because of these reasons, WAQF or endowment assets have not attracted capital for the development, and they have been the underappreciated and undervalued assets for the last 100 years. And this is what the problem statement that Finterra has been working on. Now, when Finterra started off this project back in October last year, 2017, we studied this problem statement, and we put together an advisory team to help us understand the concept of endowment and WAQF, the concept of Sharia compliance, and the concept also within the common law within the country under the Endowment Act itself or the WAQF Act itself, and the FSA, Financial Services Act. So we put together a advisory panel of 4-5 persons specializing in this space, and they advised us and educated us and helped us to create a model and a framework which Finterra now is building into the private chain known as the endowment or the WAQF chain. So let me show you what this private chain is all about. Now, Finterra is a piece of technology. It is a blockchain technology. So like any other blockchain, Finterra is a platform, a blockchain platform. Finterra, the blockchain platform. And within it, it uses a token system called the Fin tokens to operate the Finterra network. Now, like any other blockchain, Finterra has features like the token system. We are using the network token ERC20. We also are building a smart contracting system. We also have a consensus engine. And we also have a ledger system. Now, this is what the Finterra blockchain build is. Now, this is just purely the underlying platform, which we call it the technology enabler or the engine. Now, on top of this engine, we are building multiple private chains. And one of those private chain as a use case is the endowment or WAQF chain. So the private chain is built on top, and it is the endowment or WAQF chain. And it interacts with the Finterra blockchain, or is sitting on top of the Finterra blockchain. Finterra blockchain is like the operating system, and WAQF chain is like the application running on top of the operating system. Now, what is so specific about this WAQF chain is because WAQF or endowment is a compliance area within any country, and it has to comply to certain regulations. So those regulatory requirements of endowment management and also fundraising against endowment assets were built within the endowment chain. And those were the FSA, Financial Services Act, IFSA, Islamic Financial Services Act, and basically taking account of KYC and AML. other areas of like WAQF law compliance, and also Sharia law compliance. Sharia law compliance. So those features, those regulatory features were built within this private chain. Now let me give you a scenario how this private chain actually operates. Now to operate this private chain, we have actors within the system. And those actors, basically I'm giving you a blow up of the WAQF chain, what happens inside. Those actors within WAQF chain are entities like fund management, audit, the WAQF board or the endowment foundation, insurance or takaful, Islamic insurance, constructions or building management, and asset management. Okay. So these are the actors, and the processes of these actors are built within the WAQF chain, and all of that complies to the FSA Acts of common law countries, WAQF law, and the Sharia compliance. That is all built in it. So now let's run a case scenario. What actually happens when a WAQF asset requires capital raise to get developed? Now, who owns a WAQF asset? The WAQF board owns or is the administrator of a WAQF asset. What are those type of assets that we are looking at? We are looking at right now land-based assets. So let's take a piece of land, and that piece of land needs to be developed. The WAQF board would like to put a community hospital on it. So they would like to build a community hospital on this piece of land that they are administering. Now, how do we go about that? Because we are not going to get any financing from the financing institutions to raise that capital. So the WAQF board, first thing what they do is they lease that WAQF or endowment land. So the land is leased. And let's take it, the lease is for 99 years. Next thing is they need to know how much they need to raise. So here the capital requirement, let's take it as an example, $50 million is required to raise to build that asset. Okay? Now, to do all of that, the WAQF board would need to build a project paper on that project. And the project paper should have, of course, the lease titles, should have the project costing, the architectural drawing, and also the feasibility study done on the feasibility of this project. So once the project paper is written by the board needs to get the project paper independently audited by an auditor. So these auditors could be like EY or KPMG or so many other auditors in different countries. Now, once the auditor reviews the feasibility of this project, that the costing is right, that it is a feasible project, it can be done within the time frame that has been given, and they rubber chop as an approval, then the auditor and the WAQF board appoints a fund manager to help raise the capital, the 50 mil required capital. The fund manager creates a portfolio of this project, basically an investment opportunity around this. And the fund manager publishes the project on top of the WAQF chain. So let's call this project maybe the W1 project. Okay? So this becomes the W1 project. And that project is published on top of the WAQF or endowment chain. Okay. Now, when the fund manager creates the fund to raise capital against the W1 project, they do something known as financial instrumenting. So at this point, they look at the class of the asset that needs to be developed. The class of the asset is here a hospital. A hospital could be a profit center or revenue generating asset. If it is, say, an orphanage or a temple or a mosque, then that is a non-revenue generating asset, and the instrumenting to raise capital is done differently. So right now, within the WAQF chain, we are allowing for 4 different instrumenting to be used. And these instrumentings are: 1, cash WAQF. We are allowing for loan, so either Islamic loan or loan, or non-interest bearing loan. We also have something called mudarba, or in English, investments. We have also sukuk, which is bonds. So these are the 4 instrumentings right now built within the system that the fund manager can make use of. Now, once the project is published, the project churns out the number of, churns out the capital raise using smart contracts. So here a W1 smart contract is released, or a token is released, and that token is shown to global community, which is the Finterra community, and the community is given a preference to view that portfolio and purchase those smart contracts. And the purchase of the smart contract has to be done using this instrumenting. So a user can come in and say, I want to give donation against this project. I don't want any ROI. So cash WAQF and loan, there is no ROI, no return on investment. So this becomes as, the first is purely as donation, second is just your principal back. Mudarba is investment, but investment in the sense of profit and loss sharing. It's a profit share arrangement. Sukuk is bonds where a fixed rate per annum is given. Okay, so this is how the users will start purchasing the 50 million worth of smart contracts, and those funds are transmitted through the system back to the fund manager. Okay, so at no point you can see that either the token launch or the fund collection comes back to Finterra. Finterra is purely a platform provider. Just like SAP, Oracle, we are a platform provider. And we put these actors in the ecosystem to operate the business of creating capital for the development of WAQF. So now that capital goes back to the fund manager, and once the hard cap of 50 mil is achieved, the fund manager activates the construction. The construction builds the asset. Once the asset is built, it is transferred to asset management. Asset management transfers revenue back to fund manager. At all times, insurance is involved in 2 ways. 1, to protect investor investments, capital. If for any reason the fund manager liquidates during the raise, the insurance covers the investor's capital. And also insurance covers the built asset. So all of this is operating within the WAQF chain. So that is what we call the ecosystem of the WAQF chain. So in a broad sense, this is what the WAQF chain is all about. It helps in raising capital from the crowd, right? This is the crowd. And at this point, to point out, now these individuals that are actually contributing capital to the asset development, these are pre-qualified investors. So what Finterra does is, we allow users, any users from the public, to register in Finterra, and we take them through the KYC and AML process. And today we are using Synopsys, which is a partner company of MAS, the Monetary Authority of Singapore. to assess them on their KYC and AML. And once they're assessed, they're given a credit rating, how much can they contribute in our environment, and they are qualified as a pre-qualified investor, and only then they are shown a portfolio, an opportunity. And they are given an opportunity to purchase those smart contracts, and the funds are transmitted back to fund manager. So for my regulatory compliance, Finterra is very clear. At no point Finterra issues any tokens against WAQF, only the fund manager issues the tokens against the WAQF asset. And also all fiat currency or contributions by the investors are directly transmitted to the fund manager. So we try, our best to keep the regulatory compliance of the FSA, Central Banking and Securities Commission compliance, within the system. So in principle, this is what the WAQF chain does, and a lot of regulators and the ecosystem players are excited about this kind of a product and automation. In the past, this kind of a process took anywhere between 1 to 2 years to complete in paperwork, and hundreds of thousands of dollars to get that paperwork completed. But now with the WAQF chain, this process can be completed in less than 2 weeks, and it hardly costs anything. Most of the time, the paperwork cost is actually bear by Finterra, and Finterra just takes back whatever it invests in helping raising the capital through a success fee if the fund is successful.
Excellent explanation. Thank you, Hamid. Do the WAQF in the Middle East, do the endowment funds in the West, do they appreciate what a revolutionary solution this is to a challenge they've been facing?
Yes. So what we have been doing last 90 days is we have been talking to fund managers to onboard them, pre-qualify and put them in the system, so that if you are coming in from Malaysia, you have access to Malaysian fund managers. If you're coming in from India, you have access to Indian fund managers, global auditors, insurance company, construction companies, WAQF boards, right? So the first thing was we wanted to get endorsement from the WAQF boards, because we want the WAQF board to believe in the system, that this is not a gimmick. This is a real model to raise real capital against the projects that they would like to build. So far we have already gotten endorsement and sign-offs from WAQF boards in India, Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, and also the WAQF in Saudi Arabia. The other two that are coming on board is Bahrain and also Oman. So this has been done already in the last 90 days. So the WAQF boards now are fully endorsing this model. Now the WAQF boards are a bit concerned once you say Sharia compliance, because this instrumenting, because WAQF is charity, how could you give a ROI on charity assets? So this is where the Sharia compliance or Islamic finance compliance comes in, so that we use the right instrumenting in collecting the funds so that no wrong expectations are set. Now, if a instrumenting of cash WAQF is used, so here there is no ROI. This is as good as a donation. Okay, loan is of course a non-interest bearing loan. So again, no ROI. Of course, here is a profit share. Now, if the asset does not make a profit, you don't need to share anything. So here the terms and conditions that are embedded within the smart contract is it is a profit share. So if a user selects the Mudarba option, their smart contract is embedded with a profit share. If the asset class generates a profit, they get a percentage of that profit. If the asset class does not generate a profit, they get nothing, right? And in Sukuk or bond, actually this is the most commonly used in the Islamic world today, because it is quite clear, where I tell you that the maturity period is 5 years, year over year I'll be giving you 10% growth, early redemption, this is the penalties, right? And how you can actually redeem, right? So this is the most common. So based on whichever option the user actually uses, the smart contract here converts itself into those terms and conditions, T&C changes, and it gets issued to the user. This is where I think a lot of questions I get, why can't this same thing be done on a simple software or a different software? Why do you need blockchain for it?
Why?
Okay, because of the smart contracting. See here, as the conditions change, the smart contract changes, right? And at all time there's transparency. The user can see where my funds are. Are they at this stage? Are they at this stage? Are they at this stage, or they have been deployed? My $1 has bought a brick in the construction.
When the money is deployed, is the investor is there transparency as to the effectiveness of the deployment?
Okay.
Right?
Okay. Yes. So effectiveness, because fund manager is managing the total build, project managing the construction part of it. So it is their responsibility as a fund manager, licensed fund manager, to engage a licensed construction and put in a project management practice to get that project done within the budget, within the time, before it is transferred over to asset management. So, I mean, in theory, it is a workable solution. I think we have multiple endorsements coming from Bank Islam, Maybank Islamic, Islamic Development Bank Saudi Arabia, have looked at it, and they are quite comfortable that this automation process is similar to what they're running in a manual world right now. Sharia compliance has always been the question. So we are actually getting in front of the Sharia committee in Malaysia on 11th of May to actually defend this concept, and they'll query us. Hopefully post that we'll get a Sharia endorsement from them, and the build is already ongoing. Yep. Few of the WAQF boards from India, 2 pieces of land has been allocated, already signed over to us. In Malaysia, 2 pieces, Indonesia 1 piece, and Saudi Arabia 1 piece. So post the development of the system, the first thing we'll do is we are going to put the system to test in developing those pieces of land as pilot projects. And this is where we are looking at capital raise of over $100 million to allocate at least 20 million on those 5 assets to build pilot projects to show that this model is not just a theoretical model, it actually works in the development of asset. And to raise the 100 mil, right? What we are targeting is the user base to grow to 1 million users by 30th of June.
How many have you got now?
We are in excess of 400,000 already right now. Okay, and we are putting a credit rating or capacity of $100 per investor per month. With 1 million, we should have a capacity to generate $100 million per month. That's the capacity we'll be able to create within this year. So imagine the amount of capital we'll be able to generate to take over land titles on leases and to develop assets on them.
So just so I'm clear, the 100 million is really going to make you a proprietary developer of assets as well, is it?
For the pilot. For the pilot. Post that, we will just open it up to the whole community. Whoever wants to raise capital against their endowment assets, they will need to write what is a white paper, right? And the white paper needs to be audited, and then a fund manager is appointed, and the whole process starts. So multiple projects can run on this simultaneously. So I just showed one case scenario, say the W1, but there could be a W2, W3, and WN. And we could have as many projects as you want running on top of the WAQF chain.
Are we suggesting here that only individuals who are pre-qualified and registered in the Finterra,
yes,
and their own Finterra coins, are the ones who are going to be allowed to access these investments?
Yes. So what we are saying is, because here the Fin token is a ERC20 token, which is a utility or a network token. The W1 token is classified as a ERC777 token, and it is a smart contract, and it is a securities token. That's the reason that at no point Finterra issues this token, or at no point it sells or collect funds against this token. Only the fund manager issues it, who is licensed to do that, and also collect fund against it, who is licensed to do that. That is the whole reason. But for a user, these users, to acquire the ERC777 token, the securities token, they must purchase it via the ERC20, the Fin token. Okay?
So the access to these investments on any investment coming on the Finterra
Yes.
blockchain can only be accessed through the Fin token.
I would say yes and no right now. It would be through Fin, or it could be through BTC, or through Ethereum, or other cryptos.
Also, any ERC20 token foundation can access the W.
Yes, will be able to purchase the W1. Because, of course, the ultimate here would be that the integration will be done via an exchange. Okay? So there would be an exchange. So it is dollar to, say, Fin, and Fin to BTC, and it goes on, and right? So that exchange is integrated here.
Do you make money on this exchange?
Yes.
Finterra?
Yes, we do.
Excellent.
So the conversion between one currency to another in the day trade, we make a margin on that.
Excellent. So apart from us owning, or apart from an individual owning a Fin token or Fin coin,
Yep.
who will get almost an exclusive access to these so-called projects.
Yes.
There is a revenue model built in the Finterra blockchain,
Yes.
and access to other revenue models
Yes.
also.
Exactly. Because on Finterra, this is only one chain. This is one chain. Right now, we are in the process of building in excess of hundreds of chains. Hundreds of chains will be built, and all chains will be operated by the common network or the utility token of the Fin ERC20 token.
Hamid, can you just tell us, let's say we're an investor, we're looking to buy some Fin tokens, we're persuaded by what you've told us.
Yeah.
I know the Fin token is a moving price, right?
Yes.
I mean, the price has appreciated.
Has appreciated, yeah.
In part, I suspect, because of the number of subscribers you
Yes,
got on
right now is purely based on the number of subscribers.
and the credibility of what you're proposing.
Yes.
Now, tell us, what are you projecting? I mean, you started off by saying this is a $1 trillion market.
Yes.
I come from the financial markets.
Yes.
When I look at those sorts of numbers, it seems to me you're possibly a massive disruptor here.
Yes.
Admittedly, you're making these assets more efficient for the
Yes.
Islamic world.
Islamic as well as non-Islamic.
But
That's
that's-
where I said it is a common law.
Yes.
Endowment law, English law, and the Islamic law is common law.
So you're coming to, let's put it in a more generic way, you're coming
Yes.
to the endowment world.
Yes, we are
And
coming
you're
to the
s-
endowment world.
And you're saying to the endowment world, we can increase the quality of your impact,
Yep.
right? By
Yes.
making it more efficient.
Yes.
What's the size of the market? What are we talking about?
si-
How does one value, how does one predict?
See, in the pre-ICO stage, which is the promotion stage we are doing right now, we are using the liquidity and risk formula, right?
Yeah.
It is the number of users that are onboarding, the number of pre-commitments that we are getting is actually giving valuation to the Fin itself, okay? So that's a liquidity formula that we are using right now. The post-ICO part, of course, would be the volume of transactions that are moving within the ecosystem.
So
here,
you're a transaction-driven model.
Is a transaction.
Yeah.
So a supply and demand transaction, two things. One is the transaction, supply and demand is here, supply demand tradability of the Fin. Okay. Now let's take just for pilot, 5 projects worth 100 mil USD. Okay. So 100 mil worth of transactions need to move through this network, right, against the time that we need to raise it. Say we need to raise it within 180 days. Within 180 days, $100 million will move through this network, right? Because the launch of the smart contracts will happen, and the purchase will happen, and the fund transmission back to the fund manager, right? So that's only in the pilot stage. Imagine subsequent to that, how many projects could come on this network? The W projects could come in. In Kenya alone, you could look at 100 projects. India, maybe 1,000 projects. Malaysia, how many projects? Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Abu Dhabi, you name it. South Africa, you could have thousands of projects running on this network, and each project, say, on average, is a $5 million project. It could be $5 billion moving in the network and on asset-backed. So the potential is huge because it is asset-backed. It is a smart contract, right? Using financial instrumenting, it is solid.
Are you, is your model really democratizing the financial markets? Because if you think about it, you know, I was, this morning when I'm coming to see you, Telegram was saying that, you know, they'd raised some money and they said minimum ticket size was $1 million.
Yes.
Now that is not democratizing
That's not
anything. That's keeping it for a small group of people.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what is your philosophy here, really? Given what are you trying to? Are you trying to bring new product to and slice it down?
Yeah, I think rather than looking at it from that angle, I would take it that in Islamic concept, right, there are few things that have been made mandatory in Islamic practice. And one of those things is zakat, the concept of zakat or giving alms or tax, right, the Islamic tax. Now that is mandatory on all Muslims in the world to contribute something from their income annually as a tax that goes to the government, and government use it for charity or the betterment of the people. So tax. Now there is another concept within Islam which is called sadaqah, which is actually charity, and that is charity in the name of God. So when you come out of the mosque, you see some poor person asking for money, without thinking you should give. Okay, you see somebody in need, you should without thinking give, because when you give, God will give you reward for it, here in this world or in the hereafter. In the old historic practices, right, in the old days, there was one more practice, which was the practice of contributing to WAQF. That practice was lost since 1914 till today. And what happened since 1914 till now? The WAQF practice became, if you are a rich guy, you own big pieces of land and you are a millionaire, right? So before you pass away, because you want to, you know, do some philanthropic work, you will give a piece of land and say, I give it to charity. So my name is attached to it, and that building will be called the Hamid's, you know, foundation building, and I'll be remembered forever, right? So no, that was not the essence of WAQF. The essence of WAQF was give whatever you can give in the development of endowment or WAQF. And whatever you give today is like a fixed deposit for you in the hereafter. So it does not mean that you give $1,000 or $1 million or a big piece of land. It means just giving $100 a month, $10 a month. And that contribution going into buying a piece of brick that will be put into the mosque or a temple or an orphanage, you will be remembered by God forever. And that reward, forget about the ROI, that reward will be yours in the hereafter. And that is the practice of WAQF.
Let me, final question. You know, so this concept surely should work across the world, because I mean, we have endowments.
Exactly.
Bill Gates probably has an endowment, something like this should surely appear. So have you also taken it into the Western markets?
Yes, so we are now slowly rolling out into the Western market. Last week I presented in Moscow. It was very well received, because you know that Moscow is the city of churches. The pieces of land that the churches were built on 400, 500 years ago until today are endowed lands. Those churches are surviving on donations for renovation. Why can't we use this model to renovate the church? Those are endowment. Why can't we build orphanage in Russia, or community-based hospitals, community centers, using this model to raise capital? Why do we have to be a burden on the government to wait for the grants, for them to budget a grant for us? Why can't we as a community pitch in for the betterment of the rest of the community? So in other words, our punchline for Finterra is a social solution for blockchain. There is no element of greed in this, fluctuation of currencies and ROI and all of that, like what Bitcoin has been promoting. Here is for the betterment of society. A blockchain solution is being used, totally regulatory compliant, based on English common law as well as Islamic Sharia compliance, using financial instrumenting which is prescribed by fund managers.
May I ask at this stage?
Yes.
This model seems to exhibit to me that two things. Number one, that you are giving access to endowment to people who can't endow otherwise.
Yes.
because they do not own such large plots of land.
Yes.
And there is more contribution or not is,
Yes.
is basically giving them this religious mileage to develop endowment.
Very true.
Am I right?
Very true. So we are giving opportunity here to every common man in the world, Muslim, non-Muslim.
That's important.
Yeah, so that's important
Yeah.
because the concept of endowment is a very big concept in charity in the Christian religion, in the Jewish religion, in the Hindu religion, right? Charity is a must thing. That is something that actually saves and revives our soul, right? Not only in
It's
Islam.
actually a legacy of here and there.
Yes. So giving something, here the Finterra blockchain is not saying there's a cap of 100K and above to come in. Here there is no cap. As long as the prescribed smart contract allows you to come in, right, you can contribute your monthly contributions. Now I give you that this part is actually being very well practiced and set in Singapore. So in Singapore, the government has agreed with the WAQF board that as they deduct in monthly salaries, right, tax, prudential fund or the retirement fund, they also deduct a WAQF amount if you are a Muslim. It's compulsory.
Same for Catholics.
Yes.
Same for Catholics
Yeah.
all over the
So
world.
imagine a country like Singapore is already practicing it for many, many years. And when we go to the WAQF board of Singapore, they say we are not short of funds. We are flushed with funds. We are actually reinvesting those funds not only in Singapore but out of the country, and we have become a profit center. And we are able to take care of our community and the community needs for hospital and mosque and orphanage and old folks homes. We are able to take care of it. Why can't we replicate that at a global stage using a tool that gives access to not only users but also the institutions to be part of it? And Finterra model is straightforward. For the users, it's free of charge. Institutions are charged an annual subscription fee to be part of the system, to subscribe the system. So that is our revenue model. It's a software subscription for the institution to be on board with us. So we are onboarding a lot of institutions all over the world right now.
I did know something else. Normally, if we make an investment, small or large,
Yep.
we are always subjected to some kind of a fixed cost
Yeah.
and a variable cost thereafter.
Yes.
And there's always a minimum fixed cost, by which time, if we are to get $1 in the investment,
Yeah.
we can end up getting only 30 or 40 cents to $1
Yes.
worth investment by the time we give $1.
Yeah.
If you give $1 million, maybe we get 50 or 60 cents because the rest of the money goes in costs.
Costs. Correct.
And am I correct to imagine that the blockchain technology, which reduces costs
Yes.
substantially,
Yes.
and be able for people to get almost, let's say, $94 or $95 for every $100 in investment?
Yeah.
Am I true to say that the cost of investment is reduced tremendously?
It has. I don't think any pre-calculations have been done on what is the percentage of cost reduction, but yes, because here the process itself has been reduced, right? So imagine a 1-2 year process reduced to 2 weeks. So if that kind of process reduction, of course you can imagine the cost reduction, because lawyers and auditors work on time and material, right? So you're giving them now less time. Everything is automated on a platform. All they have to do they have to go into the platform and go and review the documents and approve within the system itself. So yes, there is definitely a cost reduction. The percentage, the degree of it, I do not know yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if we divest from the ECR 20,
Yes.
are we automatically divesting from ECR 777, which is ECR 20 holds?
I mean, the ECR 20, the Fin token is what is classified as a utility or network token. It is purely, it operates just in this premises here. It does not go to this level. So it is used, the ECR 20 is used to operate the private chains that are built more and more. But on top of that, then it could be variable different tokens, right? In case of the WAQF or the W1 projects, we are using the ECR 777 token because this is very good for smart contracting. And this token has to be a smart contract because of the instrumenting and the regulatory compliance.
So I am able to own an ECR 777 contract,
Yes.
whichever W you talk
Yes.
about, and not own an ERC 20 contract.
Yes, you can. Yeah, because of course your exchange is linked to, of course, a wallet. Wallet is containing your FIN, FIN, and also the W token. So your wallet will contain all of, so it's a multi-currency wallet that will supply, and whatever comes out of the system, that will be the primary wallet.
So what is the advantage of having a FIN token if I cannot own it and still access the ERC 777 token?
No, you can own the FIN. You can own a FIN, but you need the FIN to actually transact within the network.
Ah, I see.
Okay, so here you need to own a FIN through an exchange and then convert the FIN to the ERC 777. You won't be able to buy the ERC 777 directly.
You must get into the ERC 777 via a FIN.
Yes, so it will be the
So
FIN.
the route is to the FIN, we don't have a choice.
Yes,
So the demand for the FIN is not only a ROI model on the FIN, what do you call it, business model
Yeah.
itself, but even an access to all the investments that go on it, whether
Yes.
it's WAQF or private.
or the e-commerce or the money services or whatever else, to operate any of those businesses on top of Finterra, the FIN becomes the common token or the common currency.
Yeah, so the value of the FIN is basically much more than
Then,
we can
yeah.
ever imagine.
Yeah, so the formula that will be created, one is the FIN transaction itself through the exchanges, supply demand. Another is the FIN circulation within the network. So it will take an average of circulation within the network and give a value to it.
Oh, that's
That-
these are the details that, you know.
Yes.
Thank you so much. You made it so much clearer.
Okay.
No, thank you. So are we modeling what we're talking about? I mean, you know, are we modeling what this could look like? I mean, it seems to me there's a huge variability, right?
It's a huge thing. So yes, we are modeling this. Of course, the version 1 is expected to come out within the next 60-90 days. It will be ready, the version 1. We are engaging a lot of these players to help us to look at the practice, because I don't know much about fund management. So we have multiple fund managers coming in to advise. Same thing on the WAQF practice, audit practice and all. So now those processes are being taken in to develop and refine the system. So of course the system will take time to get mature, right? But in the next 60 to 90 days, we'll at least have the version 1 of the system up and running. At least the pilots or the public beta versions can start, and then it will take some time for it to mature. As more projects come on, we will get refined system coming out.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was tremendous.
All right.